Hello YouTube, this is Augustus Larch. I have to address something very important that's in the world stage today, and that's the economy. There's been so much promise, so much potential for the new administration, Barack Obama, and it's nothing new for me. I know that man in the office of our presidency is just a puppet. He's been selected just like every other president for a long time, because at a certain point in this country we just quit having a viable government. The overt government that you see every day is not the viable government that's actually running things. Actually, the lobbyists run everything, and the lobbyists are controlled by the banks, and the banks are enslaving this country, and Barack Obama and his administration are letting them, because they're the in people, they're the yes men. You know, I don't care what kind of promises he make, what kind of potential he represents. Doesn't mean anything. I'm into results. With last presidency we had, George W. Bush, he made this whole spiel, has all his pundit minions. Well, they're not his minions, but the punditry, the parrotry actually on television everywhere. Mostly on Fox News, saying, oh well, we're the Republicans, we're conservative, we want government to be smaller. Well, that's just potential and promise, really, and they don't mean anything. Look at the kinetic force behind it. Look at the results of what happened during the conservative reign of government. The government expanded more than any other time in history. Probably more than the New Deal, more than Johnson's Great Society, all under a conservative president, on a pretty sketchy license, really sketchy. There's enough people out there who can give good evidence, make good claims to the fact that the official story's bunk. Well, they should be considered at least, and not scoffed at, because that's an instrument of control right there. If you scoff at people that have dissenting views, it's not a good way to operate. In this country right now, everybody talks about the economy, but the economy is just fine. We have a good infrastructure, we have good stores, we have good roads, we have the system of the banks in place, even though they're under bad rules at the moment, which is my next topic, the greenback. The U.S. note. If you don't know what that means, you're going to have to wiki it, look it up, because it means much different than what our system runs under now. Since 1913, we've run under the Federal Reserve System, and that means we give private banks the license to print money. They don't actually print it. The Bureau of Engraving prints the money, but the Federal Reserve directs it, and they only have federal is a misnomer, because they're not federal. They're private banks that control the federal government, and if you see that right now, and it's all on fractional reserve banking. They bring $1 in, and they represent a loan, and they expand that loan by 10 times. So the money's based on loans when it used to be based on gold, which with the regular U.S. note, and then they had the silver certificate, which was based on silver, and it balanced things out, and then they said we got to add a third to Federal Reserve, but then eventually they eliminated the other two notes, so we don't have a diversified currency anymore. We have one currency, a unilateral fractional banking currency that's based on debt. And anybody who's done any business knows if you're in debt, you're not wealthy. But that can't tell a lot of people that these days. They gauge how wealthy they are by what their credit score is and how much money they can borrow. That is irrational. I'm pointing that out right now if you haven't figured that out, because it is. Okay? And the greenback was during the Civil War. They needed money, so it's a pure fiat money. They didn't have the gold reserve. So what they did is just said, oh, we're going to print as much money as we need to operate, because we're the government, and then we're going to do that. And that's called the greenback dollar. So they put the U.S. note and made it into the greenback, which are pretty much interchangeable, but not technically. But that's the best way to do it. A lot of countries in Europe are just like that. They just say, how much assets do we, what's our trade deficit, and they just print, that's how much money we're going to need. And they keep track of it, and they don't overprint money. And if If something has a problem, they take money out of circulation, because that's a good thing for the economy, because money is an instrument. Okay, and there's the product of diminishing returns. That means, say for instance, you have an assembly line, and there's so many workers on that assembly line. At a certain point, if you add more workers, you're going to get more production. But then you reach the product of diminishing returns, which means your product is diminished, because you can't put any more people on the line. You're not going to get any more output. And that's what's the same thing with the dollar, with money. It's just an instrument. People assign this mystical quality to it, and it's just a piece of paper, really. It just represents something. But now, the U.S. Federal Reserve note represents crap more and more every day. And that's because this based on debt system. What the government needs to do is buy back all those Federal Reserves, or just cancel the Federal Reserve and say, this is how many notes we're going to need. We're going to print greenbacks, and hopefully we'll get some wealth back to back up this fiat money. But for right now, we have an organization and the discipline, and that's enough. And that is enough. And that's what this country needs, to go back on the greenback dollar, U.S. note, immediately. And if that doesn't happen, I don't see it happening. I see this as a write-off contingency right now. I mean, I'm pretty much lost faith, but I'm hoping there will be a glimmer, hoping glimmer. The only thing you can do is get things into real wealth. Like, if you ever get any hands on Federal Reserve notes or a check, go to the bank, buy up your whole, everybody should do this, buy up gold coins and silver coins at the bank. They sell them there. And take away your paycheck. Don't put it in the bank vault, where they're just going to expand it 10 times and add to all the debt mess that we have. Bring it home or put it in a safety deposit box with your gold coins, because they're real and they'll last. And they're $20, $10, $5 gold pieces. The same with silver, you just get dollars. But it costs like $200 to buy a $20 gold piece now. But to think of it, that $200 will be worth nothing at some point, and then you'll still have that $20 gold piece, which someone could work like a whole week to get that, really. Well, not in America, but if things keep going the way they are, yeah, right now you could pay somebody a whole day and pop them off and they could work hard the whole day, and if you gave them a $10 gold piece, that's a big chunk of change, you know? That's over $100. So, and maybe someday it will be with value worth $10, where the dollar is supposed to be valued, not where it is now. So, this is Augustus Larch with a little bit of with my knowledge on economics. I'm sharing with YouTube. You're welcome.